Hey folks, it's John with KGTropicals.com, bringing you another episode of KGQandA, where we're answering your questions sent in to that email address right there. Get your questions in now because you don't want to be waiting too long to see your question get answered in this series. So, before I get to the first question, I got to talk about something real quick, and that is, I've noticed a lot of people jumping on board with doing Q&A videos. I don't blame them. It's a great format. I love it. I'm having a blast with it. But you know, I got to do something. I got to do something to make sure that we stay on top of the game. And if there's one thing I know for sure, it's that I've got something for these Q&A videos that those other guys, they don't have. What is that? Let's find out. See? Look at what I got. I got a secret weapon. Those guys don't have this. Look at what I've got. My partner in crime here. Finally, I've been able to get her on these videos. She's a little bit nervous. She's not as comfortable in front of the camera as I am. But we're going to change that. I said, hey, we can do these videos together. We'll have a lot of fun, and we'll get her used to it, and then she won't be so nervous. Her feet are rocking back and forth. This woman does not like being on camera, but we're going to get her used to it because the videos that she's done in the past, people have absolutely loved them. They make all kinds of comments, some of them of the inappropriate nature, but you know, it is what it is. So we are happy to welcome Lisa to this episode of KGQandA. I am happy to welcome her here. We're gonna wing this. We're just gonna go through it. I've got some questions selected here that are some good ones that her and I kind of see a little differently in some of these. So we're gonna go right into it with the first question, which is from Matt Miles. Are you ready, ma'am?
Yes.
Did you want to say hi or anything?
Hi.
Okay. All right. Matt Miles, I saw on a recent Q&A video recently the question someone asked about one fish not growing. You had answered that you think it might have been a runt. My question is, I have 7 fish that I got all at once. They're supposed to be red shoulders that were 3/4 of an inch to 1 1/4 inches that have never grown. And have obviously not colored at all in the 5 to 6 months that I've had them. What could cause that? They are never picked on that I have seen, swim like normal, and they eat several pellets each feeding period. Almost all of my other fish are growing at an expected rate. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a weird question for me. This one's hard to answer because we don't know anything really about the tank. I mean, we don't know what size fish or what size tank this guy has his fish in. It could be a 20-gallon, it could be a 30-gallon. I mean, what is your first instinct when you hear somebody say, I've had fish 5 to 6 months that haven't grown at all?
Well, I would suggest taking the fish out and putting them in their own tank, whether it's a 30-gallon, a 55-gallon, and do more frequent water changes. I don't know exactly how he takes care of his tanks, if he does them weekly, bi-weekly, or whatever the case may be. I have also suggested in the past to feed a little bit, don't overfeed your fish, but when you have smaller fish you're trying to grow, it is best to feed them more often. Make sure you do more frequent water changes, and you never know, you might see them eat a little bit, but they may not be eating as much as you think, and get them away from the big guys, let them be alone in their own tank. Again, water change more often, feed more often, and they'll probably grow a lot quicker that way. That's my own personal opinion. That's what I would do here.
It's a good suggestion. It doesn't necessarily answer his question of why this could be happening, but the answer, as far as why his fish aren't growing, the answer is I don't know. I mean, how can we answer that? It could be that these fish were just runts. I've talked about Little Chuck in a couple of videos. She knows Little Chuck. He was just in here a couple of days ago. I mean, sometimes fish grow bigger than others, and you really have no control over that. If they're 3/4 of an inch, and they've been 3/4 of an inch for 6 months, are you sure you don't have guppies? I mean, I don't know how a fish could not grow in 6 months unless you have them in a 10-gallon tank or something. I mean, that's just, it sounds a little bit strange to me. Maybe you're exaggerating on your time frames a little bit or something, I don't know, but that sounds a bit extreme. 5 to 6 months with no growth at all. But I definitely agree. I think if you want to change that, stick them in a tank by themselves, let them stop competing with the other fish, and maybe we might be able to get them to start growing again. Who knows? So because we're doing these together, we're going to break these up into individual questions. So let's move on to question number 2. All right, so the next question is from a guy, I'm not even going to try to say his name. And I think he even comments on that in his question. It's actually 2 questions that we're going to combine into one. What can I do about the ammonia levels in my tap water? I feel like I'm adding ammonia back into the tank every time I do a water change, and how can I get rid of ammonia before I do my water changes? My tap water tests at 2 parts per million. After doing a 20% water change, ammonia levels stay at about 0.25. Blah, 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 blah. And then let's go to the second one, which is very similar, but similar but different. This is from Lee Wheeler from England. Thanks for all the help. Okay, you're welcome, sir. My question is, the water supply to my house is very high in nitrates. So when I'm doing my PWC, partial water change, okay, there you go. I'm essentially adding lots of nitrates in. Is there anything you could suggest? So both of these are along the same lines. They both have bad tap water. And that is definitely not a good thing when you're in this hobby, because that's part of the deal, is changing water all the time to keep the water, or to keep the fish healthy. Keep the water healthy, keep the fish healthy. So I'm a gut instinct person. You might have a big gut, you don't, but I'm a gut instinct person. What does your gut tell you as far as this guy has bad water out of the tap? What should he do?
Well, I would suggest one of 2 things. One, if you're able to get your water from somewhere else. 2, I would say treat it. Treat your water before you even stick it in the tank. If you have the ability to store a good amount of water, treat that. Then when you go to do your water changes, your water is already treated. John used to come over to my house before we lived together, and he took buckets of water for his 125 at the time. So I had good water, he had bad water. That's what he did.
My water at my old house it wasn't bad, it was
yellow.
It was wretched. I mean, it was terrible. It was about the only thing I did was shower in it. I mean, and go to the bathroom in it. I mean, that's all it was good for. I didn't hardly wash dishes in it. We definitely didn't drink it. I definitely didn't put it in the aquariums, just because it was just nasty. You could look at it and it was yellow. Different problem from what you have, but if your water is bad coming out of the tap, like she said, you've got to do one of 2 things. Get it from somewhere else, which is what I did, or get you one of those big Rubbermaid trash cans. I would show you, but then we'd have to move the camera and it'd be a big hassle. But a big Rubbermaid trash can, they're like 35 gallons. They're not expensive. Stick that in your basement, put the water in there first, treat it with all of your things like Amquil and Prime and stuff like that to get rid of all of those harmful things in the water before you even put it into your tank. Let it sit there for a little bit. Let the conditioners do their job. That way you're not putting water into the tank that already has ammonia in it. Now the first guy that I didn't even try to say his name, he mentioned the ammonia goes down once he puts it into his aquarium. Well, that's what we want. That's good that that's happening, because what's happening is you're putting water with a lot of ammonia in it into your aquarium, which has all of this beneficial bacteria whose job it is to remove ammonia. So your tank is doing its job, but you're constantly fueling the fire by putting this extra ammonia in there. So either get rid of it before you put it in the tank, or get your water from somewhere else. Right? All right, let's move on to the next one.
Another house.
That worked for us. Let's move on to the next question.
The next question comes from Ward Fuller. John, I've been keeping tropical fish for 40 years, but I still enjoy and learn watching your videos. I have a colony of Cat Morii around the 2-inch mark. When I turn the lights on in the morning, their 3 dark blotch marks are strong and pronounced. Short thereafter, they return to the beautiful shining silvery blue coloration. I know the marks will show up when the fish is stressed. but I didn't think they would be stressed at night when the tank is quiet. And there are other reasons for them to take on that look. Please teach me.
Okay, the first thing that I would say to that is that the bars or splotches like what Moriai have are not necessarily they only show up because of stress. That's not necessarily true. They show up based on the fish's mood. So if the fish is ultimately relaxed and chilling out at the bottom of the tank, which is what all these fish do when we turn the lights off, the fish is relaxed and they're asleep basically. And so in that kind of a mood, the splotches will show back up again, and that's what it is. I mean, I don't know if you can add anything more to that, but
no, I agree with that. It's just like when a fish is getting ready to spawn, the male gets extremely colorful. Blue comes out more. Speaking of the dolphins. So it definitely is a mood thing. I wouldn't worry about it at all.
Nope, absolutely nothing to worry about. Michael Russell. Hi John, Michael Russell here from Newcastle, England. Love your channel, it helps me to no end. I have kept tropical fish for a long time and now just recently got into Malawi's and I love them. Taking your advice, only stocking with males. I read that fast because everybody gives a nice little resume before they ask their questions. I'm not making fun of the guy, but it takes a while to read all through them. Anyway, my question is, how do you keep algae at bay? I used to use plecos in previous tanks, but not sure they can live with my crazy peacocks. I seem to be keeping my lights off all the time so that it won't grow. Please help. And he has a PS in there, but it's okay. So, how does someone in an African cichlid tank control algae?
Wow. Algae is a huge problem here at times, especially with our tanks in the front. I have battled algae like crazy. One of the things that has worked very well for me, and I've been pretty successful with, is doing a 50% water change using an algae product of some sort, no specific product, but adding the product, the algae fix or destroyer, whatever you have, add that to the water that you have left in your tank. 50% of it should be left. Add it, zap it, knock it out.
Half a dose.
Of course.
Right? Right.
Yeah, of course.
Half a dose to what the bottle says.
And then I will add my water, my tap water, whatever water you guys are using, but add the water because you have to be careful with using a chemical for algae. You can take the oxygen out of your tank and that is really bad for your fish. So by doing this, it should be your last resort. Like you have the worst algae bloom ever and you just can't get rid of it. So again, 50%, add your algae destroyer, put your water back in the tank, add that oxygen so that the fish are happy, and then you should have a clean tank. Another thing I would suggest is if you have direct sunlight on your tank, you might want to move your tank or put blinds up or something to decrease your sunlight coming in, or even just your normal light, you know, that comes in to your room. I have had an issue with my discus tank when we had discus in the 125. This is a really big tank and I was getting a bunch of algae in there. Couldn't really figure out why because the window's way over here. So what I did was I painted the side of the aquarium over here and black, and that just seemed to fix it.
Never a problem again.
Yeah, I didn't do anything else. So sometimes you just have to work with it and see what works best in your case.
But and plecos are also totally fine to put with Africans.
But they won't fix an algae bloom.
They won't fix an algae bloom, no. But for your diatom algae and your green algae and things like that that grow on your rocks, plecos absolutely will help. The reason why I got up and moved around when she started answering the question was because we just put a pleco in here. He's about 8 inches, I guess, or maybe smaller. But he cleaned off that background in like 48 hours. It was full of the brown diatom algae. It looked kind of natural, but it looked dirty and it was just kind of ugly. And that pleco just went in there and did some work. So there are people that worry about plecos because they are They do require a different water parameter. They do still seem to be okay in your harder water with Africans. At least they have been for us. We had a monster pleco in here before I did the overhaul, and there was never any problems. Now, I would say though, stay away from the teeny tiny plecos, because first of all, your Africans will kill it, and second of all, they seem to be pretty fragile when they're really, really little. So if you're gonna put a pleco in with your Africans, make sure it's mature, it's older, it's bigger, 6-8 inches or so, and they will definitely help out. But like she said, they won't do anything to an algae bloom that's actually in your water. When your water starts looking gray and foggy from algae, a pleco's not going to do anything for that except add to it. So that's what she was talking about with looking at what type of lighting you have coming in from the room, and you might have to make some modifications based on that. Like she said, she painted the side of that one tank where the window is. You can't see that she painted the side of the tank, and the algae problem went away. So we have tanks in our very front row of the store that we constantly struggle with because we have the front door shining all that light directly into it. And she does what she just said, with 50% of the water, takes it out, puts in a half a dose of the algae, whatever type of algae product you use, and then fills it back up again immediately with the fresh water. And it seems to do the trick, and it lasts for quite a few weeks in here in the store, and then they get nasty again because of the window. So good couple of tricks. Let's move on to the last question.
Okay, next question. This is from Connor. Hi John, should I feed my Africans, my peacocks, haps, and mbunas, small live fish every 3 months or so as a treat? I know they have varied dietary needs, but will they be able to eat the small live fish, and would it be good for them or bad? Bit controversial, but hey, cool. No, don't do that.
Yeah, good. No!
I know you asked John, but
no!
Just don't do it.
No, no, no. No, just don't do it. I don't know what else to say. I mean, when you talk about live foods, some of your fry and things like that can eat like brine shrimp and vinegar eels and microworms and stuff like that. But when you're feeding adult fish, why would you feed them live foods? Why would you go to the store and buy feeder fish and all of that? We sell them here, but we tell everybody if it was my fish, I wouldn't be feeding them live food, live feeders. I mean, bottom line is you don't know where these feeders come from. They're raised in gigantic ponds. There's disease. There's just why? Why would you do that? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. It's not. There's no real benefits for them whatsoever. I don't care if they would eat them if they were in the wild. They're not in the wild. They're in a glass box in your house. So it doesn't need to be what they would get in the wild. When the food that comes out of a can is so much better prepared and it has everything in it that they need, why would you mess things up and put in live foods? That's how I feel anyway.
I feel the same way. There's just way too many different foods out there specifically made for African cichlids that you can choose from, and it's just better for them. You don't have to worry about the disease that could possibly come with a feeder fish. So just don't feed feeder fish.
Don't risk it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Use a good pellet.
There you go. And there you have it. I mean, there's nothing more that really needs to be said about that. We do not recommend it. Other people might, but if they do, then shame on them. So we don't recommend feeding live foods. So this episode has been a lot of fun. Hopefully we can do more of these as we go on. I think she did real good. So, she's a natural at this. She just doesn't know it yet. So we can keep doing these together, hopefully, and this will be a lot of fun. There's no way I'm going to be able to get her to be in every single one, but I'll try, and we'll have more fun in future episodes. So thank you all so much for watching. Thank you, Lisa, for doing this with me.
Thank you.
And we will see you on the next episode.